If you have a dismissive, avoidant person in your life, be that your partner, co-worker, a friend, or a family member, and you would like to learn how to communicate with them so that the chances of them shutting down are a lot lower, then this video is for you. I know that a lot of my anxious, preoccupied, and fearful avoidant clients, without knowing it, say things that push away the dismissive avoidant. In this video, I am going to talk about general guidelines for communication that can be used throughout relationships and any type of attachment, and also very specific phrases that most people say to their partner, and they wonder why they're getting the response that they are getting. A lot of anxious, preoccupied, and fearful avoidant clients will say, it's like, I'm just talking about my feelings and this person is reacting to me. Why are they doing that? In this video, I'm going to tell you exactly why and what you can do about it. Welcome to this video. My name is Patricia Mohotska, and I'm the owner of the Love and Thrive School, where I help people shift from surviving to thriving and lead lives of love, safety, and freedom. So let's start from the beginning about communication one-on-one. A lot of us have heard about I sentences. This is about talking about my experience and my feelings versus blaming somebody or saying, you make me feel anxious. I'm taking responsibility for my feelings and saying, I feel anxious when this happens. So even when, say for example, the partner doesn't text back. So instead of saying, you make me feel anxious when you don't text back, you can say something like, I feel anxious when I don't hear from you. All right? That's how you can phrase it. That is going to help you to take responsibility for your feelings, and your dismissive avoidant isn't going to feel as blamed, judged, and criticized. Remember, the dismissive avoidant attachment styles, most of them have an inadequacy wound and a defectiveness core wound. So those two core wounds say, I cannot do relationships. Relationships are just so hard. I don't understand how to move through conflict. If there is conflict, that means the relationship is not working. I don't know how to manage other people's expectations of me, so I'm inadequate in relationships. Of course, that inadequacy core wound can come up in other areas like work as well. And then they have that I'm defective. There is something wrong with me because I find relationships really hard. I find emotional conversations really hard. So all of that just compounds onto them when they hear something like, you haven't texted me back. And even though that might be true, the way you're saying it might just cause your person to feel a tremendous amount of stress, and then they go into freeze mode, and then they shut down and completely withdraw, and then it's very difficult to restart that conversation because their physiology, their body, is under so much threat that it actually thinks it needs to go into freeze mode and preservation. So I know that a lot of anxious, preoccupied, and fearful avoidants really struggle with this, and they think like, oh my gosh, I need to mollycoddle the dismissive avoidant. But if we understand that the dismissive avoidants, when they react like this, it is a trauma response. Our bodies don't just normally go into freeze mode. Okay, we first have the first two stages of flight and fight. So when there is a predator, I need to run away or I need to fight them. When those two functions seem like they are not going to work, then I go into just survival of freezing and preparing for death. So freeze mode is an extreme in our nervous system, and this is why it is so difficult to then get a person, you could say, to defrost or to thaw out of that state and then re-engage in conversation, because their nervous system got such a big fright. So of course you don't have to do any of these things, but just understand what is happening and how your words can influence what is happening with the dismissive avoidant that is in your life. All right. So the first thing is I statements. The second part is when we're talking about our emotions, talk about your vulnerable emotions. So anger is a surface level emotion. Anger is a very scary emotion. So when we puff ourselves up and we're like, I'm so angry. Yes, we are communicating our feelings. However, that can make the person feel really intimidated. Usually when fearful avoidance and anxious preoccupied individuals sit with their anger, their frustration, what is underneath there is hurt and there is fear. So communicate that when I don't hear from you for prolonged periods of time, I get very anxious and I start to worry that something has happened to you, or that our relationship is breaking up, and that is really difficult for me. And I know that this is not your fault. However, this is what goes on inside of me, and I would appreciate a message that says that you're going to be putting off your phone or taking some time out for yourself, so that I know what is going on, what to expect, and I will not at all resist in you taking time as long as I know what is going on. All right, so this is a conversation that could go on between you and the dismissive avoidant. I statements. Vulnerable, talk about your vulnerable feelings. So show up non-threatening. If you show up as this big threatening person that a lot of anxious, preoccupied and fearful avoidants do, then chances are that is the response that you're going to get. And it sounds very simple, but clients come to see me over and over and over, and they say, but all I'm saying is that you never come home on time, because he never comes home on time. And the way you're saying it is causing a reaction. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. We know that. So we're expecting somebody to stay very chilled, very calm, and not get triggered when we are triggered. And that's just not how nervous systems work. We feed off each other. So if I can be calm, chances are that my partner, the person receiving the message, can also receive it in a calm way. And the way to do that is to be non-threatening when I'm communicating. Now, the next thing is speak about what you do want versus what you don't want. And this is not only for dismissive avoidance, this is just how the universe works. And the perfect example of this is when we were driving from South Africa going into Mozambique, and they have road signs that had as the number 60 just crossed out. And we were looking at the sign going like, what do you mean not 60? Just don't go 60. Like you can go 300 or you can go 10 kilometers an hour, but anything but 60. All right. This is exactly what happens when we tell our partners, when we speak in negatives. Don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do this. It's like, okay, what should I be doing? So rather redirect your conversation and talk about what it is that you want to see in the relationship. All right. So if somebody puts their socks next to the laundry bin instead of inside the laundry bin, then you can just say, hey, you know what? Please put the socks in the laundry bin, because that makes my life a lot easier. Or you can even say, I feel very tense and overwhelmed when the socks are next to the laundry bin, or I don't feel appreciated when the socks are next to the laundry bin, or I feel taken for granted, and I know that this is not what you're trying to do, it's just convenient for you, but this is what I'm experiencing when this happens. Could you please help me to change this so that my experience of my life is different? Okay, because that is what we are trying to change, is how am I experiencing my day-to-day life and our relationship, and how can we work together so that our experience of each other, the relationship, and how we are living and co-creating in space together, how can that be a lot more pleasant for both of us? Now, another part is ask questions. don't just shout commands at people because it's just going to get you to either get a response of rebellion, and then somebody's going to shut down, pull away, they're just never going to do it, or they're going to do it, please, appease, and they're going to build up so much resentment and just hate you secretly. So you can ask questions like, could you message me in the morning? How do you feel about that? So you've made a request to get another text in the morning. How do you feel about that? Or perhaps maybe something better to have said there instead of that is you know what, I really love getting texts in the morning, and we don't have to talk a lot. I know you're extremely busy. I know you have a lot of things on your mind, but just getting that good morning text, it makes me feel so warm and so loved, and it just reassures me for the rest of the day, knowing that you are safe and that our relationship is safe. How does that feel for you? Okay, so ask the question, how does it feel for you? What do you think? Dismissive avoidants value their autonomy. They do not like to feel like they're being controlled or put in a box. So asking that question is going to help them to think about it and come back to you. So you might be thinking now, what do I do if my partner is like, no, I don't want to do the text. No, I don't want to see you more than this amount of time during the week, and there's no negotiating about it. It's either this way or the highway. Whenever that happens, then you need to evaluate if the relationship is fulfilling your needs and a sufficient amount of your needs so that you can stay and be happy in that relationship. When there is an unequal need fulfillment in the relationship, then we start to feel really unhappy. And sometimes that's tricky to figure out what's what, because if you have an anxious attachment style and you have this huge need for your partner to fulfill all your needs and always be there and always be available, then of course that you are still operating from your wounding, and you're not operating from a calm place of relating and co-creating with your partner. You are trying to pacify your wound through this relationship, okay? Not saying that that is wrong. There are certain people that will want to give you more time, but if your partner over time is not, it's saying that they can't, they won't, they don't want to, or even if they say they want to and then they can't show up in this way, then that is an indication that you need to either have a conversation to address that, or that there is incompatibility, that you perhaps want more than your partner is willing to give. And then both parties are miserable, right? Because we want to get into a place where we love giving to our partner and receiving from our partner, and our partner also loves to give and receive to us and from us. All right, so then ask questions, and then wow, okay, cool. So those are the overall statements, right? So the I statements: be vulnerable, speak about what you want, not what you don't want, ask questions, and allow the other person to answer and co-create a relationship and have that autonomy. So these are now going to be phrases that I hear often my clients say, and then they wonder why they end up in trouble. And the one is, you never text me, or you never call me. This is usually an anxious, preoccupied, or a fearful avoidant talking to a dismissive avoidant, or sometimes a anxious person talking to a fearful avoidant who's more now in their avoidant part. Whenever you use generalizations, which are words like never and always, it discounts any time the other person has texted you. First of all, a lot of the time it is not a true statement. And second of all, the avoidant person will then say, you know what, well, you haven't noticed any of the times when I did text you, and therefore you don't appreciate me, so I'm just not going to even bother. nothing is ever good enough for you. Okay, another generalization. Nothing is ever good enough for you. Never. Always. Okay, so see that these words, you start to weed them out of your vocabulary, and overall your communication is going to be a lot more nuanced and more precise and feel a lot better for both people. So what can you say instead? You could say, I love receiving text. They make me feel calm. They pacify my attachment style. Do you think you could message me in the morning? How would that feel for you? And then you wait for the response. And then you negotiate with your person what they can do, what they are willing to offer, what they are not willing to offer. Another phrase that I often hear is, you always come home late. It's pretty much the same, it's generalization. So what you do instead is you could first acknowledge your person, especially if they are a breadwinner for your family, and you could acknowledge the person saying, you know what, I can see that you're working so hard for us and I really appreciate everything that you're putting into this relationship. Or you could just say, I know your work is important and I really admire how hard you work and show up there. And I've also noticed that you come home late and I really miss you. Okay, so then you start to communicate your vulnerable feelings. I really miss you when you're not here. Do you think we could do 2 nights a week where we eat together? And then you listen to what your person has got to offer you. Yes, no, can they do 1 night? Can they do both nights? Right, then you have to put it through your filters, your needs, and then you have to decide, okay, is that enough for me? Is that not enough for me? The point is, again, not to control, not to tell the person what to do. You're trying to co-create a relationship. And like Stan Tatkin says, we have opportunities to invite our partner, or he also says to seduce our partner to fulfill our needs. So this could be quite fun if you think about it that way in your relationship, you know, without controlling. Of course, you know, this isn't about controlling your person and making them do something or trying to figure out like, how am I going to make them do something? This is about being really straightforward about, this is what I'm seeing, this is how I feel about it. What can you do? What can you bring to the party? How can we create something that works for both of us? All right. Now, another phrase that I hear is, you should text me, or you should be in love with me by now, or you should be, we should be taking this relationship to the next level. Should, how does that feel for you? Often it will make people feel heavy with guilt, blame, and shame. Whenever we feel those emotions as people, we tend to just pull away. We don't want to move towards that person, right? So whenever I move towards a person and then I experience some kind of negative emotion, that is then creating negative association for that relationship. This is why we have to be so conscious about the way we communicate, because we want our person to feel like they want to come home, like they want to be with us, like they want to move into the next phase of the relationship with us. So instead of should, just say, I would like if. How do you feel about that? This is what I would like. Usually when there is criticism, there is an unspoken need. Almost 100%. Okay, now I'm generalizing. And then the last one is personalizing, is you make me feel. You make me feel so anxious. You could address the behavior instead of the person overall, and also use I statements. So when I don't hear from you for a prolonged period of time, like 3 days or a day, or however you think is a prolonged period of time, I feel very anxious. And I really need more reassurance than that. I need contact like on a daily basis, and being very specific about what it is that you need. A lot of anxious, preoccupied, and fearful avoidants do not want to tell people what they need because they don't want to seem anxious. And at the end of the day, they just end up fighting with their partner, being very highly critical and also volatile, and being angry with their partner. And that causes the dismissive avoidant to run for the hills and shut down and freeze. And then nothing gets really resolved because the actual need was not discussed. So being very specific with a person and saying, you know what, I would prefer if we could chat 3 times a day, in the morning, at 12, at lunch, and then in the evening, maybe a phone call. What does it sound like to you? Do you think that's possible for you with your schedule, with how you are, with your personality? And be realistic. Allow your person to understand that you also seeing them, that you're taking them into consideration. Use this time to troubleshoot together. Ask questions and see what is available. If you're not getting what you want, then maybe you need to go and look for that somewhere else and find a relationship that is more compatible for you. Compatibility is simply that. I love giving what my partner wants. My partner loves giving what I want, and we have this beautiful exchange of needs, and that's when the relationship feels amazing. Because if, say for example, you love giving massages and your partner hates physical touch, or you love receiving massages and your partner hates giving them at all, doesn't want to touch you with like a 10-foot pole. You know what I'm saying, pole, that word. So that is going to show that my partner doesn't even want to speak my love language, is repulsed by my love language. And that is going to cause a lot of rifts and fights in the relationship, because I'm going to keep wanting him to give me massages. He's not going to want to give me massages. Now we're going to fight about this a lot of the time because there is that incompatibility. All right. So incompatibility, you have to be really aware of what is it that are my very core needs. Not everything your partner is going to be compatible with you. If you have your hobbies or you have different interests in certain things, that doesn't matter. You need to figure out your core needs, and you can do that by yourself through looking at the need sheet that's on my website and the free resources, or seeing a coach. It's always nice to see a coach to realize what are my deep subconscious needs of my personality. And then you can see whether your relationship is really compatible or not. I hope this helps you. If you had any golden nuggets, please let me know down below. If you have found any other ways to communicate that really works for you, please let me know down below. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Patrycja Mochocka of the Love and Thrive School. I will see you soon. Big love.